You. But anyway, so as I said, we're here to enjoy ourselves. We're here to talk about football. Before we actually introduce our special guest, and I'll do that very shortly indeed, obviously, sporting memories, big sporting day today. The football starts today. Are we all happy about the football? Yeah. Are we all just to see some football? You know. Yeah. Have we got anybody? I said, have we got anybody who's got a strong opinion about the fact that we shouldn't be watching it or they shouldn't have restarted? We've never talked about this because it's been in all the papers. And I'm not bothered about starting a comment. I just wondered if anybody had any opinions one way or another as to whether we should actually get it going. I know it will boost the confidence of everybody. At least it's another step forward. But I mean, my wife came in. Val came in about 4 days ago and said, "Oh, it's just official. Bolton Wanderers have been relegated to Division 2. I said, "I could have told you that 5 months ago, love. Never mind. I've not even been waiting for that news." But still, we've got to carry on. I've got a couple. I tell you what. Before I come to you, Alan, I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but before I come, to you, I've got a couple of quiz questions for you. I just thought I'd just throw a couple in. In rugby union, who's anybody rugby union player here? No? Oh, that should be good. Oh, John Kay. Oh, yeah, you've done a bit, haven't you, John? Right. Sorry, just a minute. I think you might have to unmute yourself because of this system, John.
A long time ago at school, but I'm a TV rugby union fan now. I watch all the home internationals and the internationals in October, but right. I enjoy watching it on the telly. So that's my not anything like as big as football or cricket.
No, I must admit I'll watch any sport on television. I love watching any team sport at all. I've been watching rugby union for it. I did not realise this until it cropped up in a quiz the other day. In rugby union, which is the only playing position that doesn't have a name. Anybody ever think about that? Which playing position in rugby union in every team doesn't have a name? No? Carol's having a go at it. Well, just go on.
I'm cheating a bit because I've got a voice shouting from the front room. Number 8.
Who's shouting from front room?
My husband.
In that case, I'm sorry, Carol. It's early in the season, but we've got to get rid of him. All right.
Yeah.
It is.
I've been trying for years.
I didn't realise that. You've got your number one, your props, number 1 and number 3, your hooker number 2. Then you've got your second row, your 4 second rows. Then you've got your 2 flankers. And then right at the end, you've got the number 8. But he doesn't have a position. And I thought it was amazing that. Another one, in the Mohs scale, which is the hardest substance? It's the table that tells you the strength of each substance. Which is the hardest substance in the Mohs scale? It's not a catch question, it's just a general knowledge question. Graham, yes, we've got Graham. We'll unmute you in a second, Graham. Go on.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, we're unmuted.
Yeah, I guess it's diamonds.
It is the diamond. It is. Right, while you're on, I'll ask you this. Which is the softest?
Is it lead?
No. My son Andrew is holding his hand up here. Go on. He's got a grin, which means he's going to come out with some sarcastic comment now.
Well, you did ask this question 3 days ago in the Prince family quiz.
We did. So turn your mic off and shut up. Right. We did ask it in our quiz. And you got it wrong. So, which is the softest one? Anybody have a stab at it? Mike Jackson, yeah, go on. Mike, what do you think? We'll wait till we unmute. Can you unmute your mic? Mute it. Can you just press your button to unmute it, Mike?
There we are. Yeah, got it. Yeah. I'm guessing it's mercury.
No, it's not. Ladies, you should know this one. Primarily for ladies. No?
Gold.
Sorry?
Gold.
No. See, she's flashing a gold around again. No. It's actually talc.
Oh, talc.
Talc.
Talcum powder. Talc is a solid substance, and that is on the Mohs scale. Seriously, that's the softest. I just thought I'd throw them in. Right. Let's get down to some common sense now. Right. Our special guest today, we actually got this this connection through David Draycott, and we'll no doubt talk about the connection there. Alan, whereabouts is he on the screen? I've lost him. I'm going to give us a wave, Alan. Oh, you're there, pal. Nice to see you. By his own admission, and I'm quoting this from part of this from what he sent us. By his own admission, he's not an ex-professional footballer or a sporting icon. He's an ordinary Yorkshire lad who just loves football. He has a connection with Chorley Football Club, which I'm sure he will mention a little later, and a connection with the world of dementia. And there is a connection there as well. And I'm sure he'll mention both of them. He just wanted to share his feelings and experiences with us all. He said that if anyone wishes to ask any questions during the presentation, then feel free to jump in, give us a wave, and we'll do that. So, without any ado, welcome to our Zoom session, and I'll hand over to Alan Stockdale. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. And it came, as you said, through David and Keith McIntosh, because I came to Chorley. And would it be maybe earlier this year or back end of last year, to do our play, The Last Memory, which I'll talk about a bit later on. It's a play about a man, a real life man, who his last memory really was the Grimsby Town team of 1938 and when he was a boy. So I'll come back onto that later on. And we've raised quite a lot of money for dementia, and we've raised a lot of awareness, and we hope we've done some good with it. And it's led to me coming here. I have been a little bit worried about this, to be honest. Not about appearing in front of you. It's just, well, I'm from Yorkshire and you're from Lancashire, you know, and I just wondered, you know, would I be safer really wearing a mask? You know, I don't know.
Alan.
I don't know if it's catching, you see. You know, all these Lancashire people looking at me, it could be. So, anyway, somebody said to me, a mate of mine said, if you're going to go to Lancashire, the safest way to do it is via Zoom, and you don't actually have to go.
I don't know whether you've noticed, Alan, but your fellow Yorkshireman, David, has put his flat cap on just to make you feel at home.
And he's got his whippets there, that side of him, I think. Yeah. So,
I must admit that the connection I've had with Yorkshire people when I play golf with them is that they've all worn masks, but that's another story.
Yeah, so did Dick Turpin, didn't he? As well? So at least you can't set the dogs on me this way. I'm safely in Yorkshire, whatever happens. So there you go. So really, I was a bit bemused when I was asked to come here, because, as you say, I'm just an ordinary man. But I suppose we're all ordinary, aren't we? Even famous footballers, you know, we're just normal people, aren't we? And I've written quite a few plays, and so hence the connection. But football has been a thread that's run throughout my life. You know, it's been like a golden piece of embroidery. Love it. It's been there, you know, all my life and really, I think I've done just about everything. I've been a player, a supporter, a football manager, an administrator, a referee, and I'm still playing football now. Well, I was until this bloody virus thing. I was playing walking football, which is last 2 or 3 years, which I'll talk about as well. So it's a great thing. I mean, I've been mainly talking about football. I've got one little rugby league diversion. Are we all right with rugby league? I know it's Lancashire, right, but you've got Wigan and that, haven't you, in St Helens? So yeah,
we have. Yeah, just down the road. You know, 2 good teams. You
know, you're not totally without, you know, civilization.
Hey, you're on. Can I just tell you now, Stockdale, you're on dangerous ground here. My son is the engineer, and if I give him one nod, he'll cut you off before you can even breathe. All right.
What I'm going to say about rugby league, actually, although I'm not a rugby league man, is very complimentary to the sport. And I've got one cricket memory about my dad, which ended up in a play. So, talking about my dad, I think that's probably where we get a lot of our early influences from. And I think the first memory of my dad is when I was little, talking 5 or 6 year old, maybe younger. I've been bringing home the football, Charles Buchan's Football Monthly every week and every month. I don't get my mum right, please, because we didn't have a lot of money to go around, but he always insisted on buying himself this copy. And as I got older, into the 60s, I found these football monthlies of his and read them. But they were from a period maybe when in the 50s. Maybe, so I was born in 1954. I'm giving my age away now, but I came to football life, you know, is in the mid-60s, early to mid-60s. So these were about players that were from the 50s, which maybe it's a bit... And strangely enough, one of his books, the Book of Football Champions, which I've just found, Keith, you'll be interested in this. I opened the page to have a look at it. And the first picture, I don't know if you can see that, it's of Brian Pilkington, who was obviously from Burnley. I think Brian was... The only problem with doing this is you're not getting any feedback, are you? I feel like I'm talking in a void here, but it's... I hope everybody's still awake.
You're right. You're right there, and the fact that we do have a connection. We do have a very good connection. Keith particularly does with Brian Pilkington, because we were Keith's been a friend of his, and we've known each other for many years. And we used to bring him to the Chorley when he sadly died, you know, a few months ago. And I said it was a sad loss to football, but a sad loss to us as well, because he was the president of Chorley. He was the honorary president of Chorley Football Club, and he finished his career off there as well. But great player, lovely man.
Funny then that the first page I should open with a view to looking for some material is a picture of him. It says Johnny Haynes and Brian Pilkington, the outside left, both made their debuts in the full international side against Ireland in Belfast last year. England won 2-0. So I didn't know that Brian was a full England international, and he made his debut alongside Johnny Haynes, who we've obviously all heard of. You know, so I thought that was quite nice. And looking at those football monthlies, which I haven't got much left of my dad. He didn't leave much, but he's left me his football monthlies. And the first one is, you might remember this fella, Norman. He's called Doug Holden.
Yeah, Bolton Wanderers.
Yeah.
Number 11 for Bolton Wanderers. Yeah, played in the 1958 side, and he also played in the losing 53 side.
Yeah. And the next one, where you'll all know this fella, Chorley. Tom Finney and his son.
Right.
And that's from September 1954.
Would that be Brian, Keith? Would that be, if it's Thompson, it'd be Brian, wouldn't it? Yeah, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so he'll be pushing 70 now, that lad, won't he, that young lad, if he's still with us.
We played golf with Brian Finney. He must be mid-70s now. He must be, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's him in 1954, which is 66 years ago. Yeah. He's probably looks about maybe 7 or 8 year old there.
Yeah. We couldn't afford the annual. The weekly one. Keith brought, you know, the Charlie Buchan Christmas annual was the one we used to have. The hardback one, I think that's the one.
Yeah. I remember that, Norman. Yeah. Another one again. It's come straight up off the top. You might remember this fella as the manager of Manchester United, but he was a Preston North End footballer, Tommy Docherty.
Yeah.
Remember him, anybody? Yeah, well, he will do. I think he's still with us, isn't he?
Tommy is, yes.
Yeah, and that again is from May 1954.
Yeah.
And lastly,
with Tommy, I can still hear him talking.
Yeah.
Because if you ever went to an after dinner, he was one of the real stars of the after dinner circuit. Told some wonderful stories, and he can still tell a good story.
Yeah. Well, I bet. Yeah. So, but I think a lot of people forget that he was quite a famous Preston and Scotland international, wasn't he, in his playing career.
You've got a lot of Preston supporters here. Hold your hands up. How many Preston fans here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got a divvy breeding. Right. You also have, Alan, I don't know whether you know this, but you've got Stephen Maggs there. Steve Elliott.
Yes, yeah.
Ex-Preston North End professional. How many goals, I'll ask Maggs, perhaps, how many goals did Steve score in his career at Preston? Can you remember, Maggs? How many goals in his career? How many goals in your career, Steve? Because there was over
100. Over 100.
Over 100, because there was, I think it was something like over 400 games as well. You know, so
yeah.
And he said, you talk about you playing walking football. You want to play walking football with him?
Wow. Yeah, I wish it. Can I? I'd like to do when it all finishes. Is that an invite?
He plays like he's 21-year-old, and he hits it as hard as he did when he was 21-year-old as well.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, I'm better now than I was when I was 21-year-old. and I weren't right good then. And lastly, well, I've got a few here, but I'm just sticking Lancashire connections. This is a fella, a goalkeeper called for Blackpool, called George Farm.
George Farm, wow, that's going back a bit.
And that's from October 1954. Blackpool and Scotland. So we're talking of a time perhaps before most of our times, but it's part of our heritage, isn't it? You know.
But it's part of the fact. We were brought up on that. Our age. I think most of us, present company excepted with the ladies, but most of us, you know, at that age. We've got Graham. Do you want to say something? Just a minute. We'll unmute your mic. Can you unmute that, Andrew? No, you're going to have to unmute your mic. Yeah, thanks. That's it. It's done.
Yeah, I've lost the picture, Norman, but can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. All right. Yeah.
Right. Just give me a minute because I need to get back to the picture. I don't know what I've done.
Well, go on. Carry on talking, and then we'll talk you through it.
I was going to say that on my bookshelf in front of me, I've got 3 Charlie Buchan hardback annuals. There's the 58-59, 59-60, and the 60-61.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah.
They are destined for my grandchildren as part of my gift to them.
All right. Yeah, so you're not going to let your brother-in-law look at them then?
Not at all. No.
Okay.
I know what he does with books.
Moving on.
So I'm glad it's brought some memories of. I mean, I remember as a kid, sort of in the mid-60s, buying. It was still going. Was Charles Buchan's. I've got my dad's magazines, but I haven't got.
See, Alan, you see, you're confusing us, Alan, because you're saying it posh. You're saying Charles Buchan. It's the Charles Buchan book.
Oh, it's Buchan, I think.
No, it's It's only when you're a Southern Jesse that it's Buchan. It's Charles Buchan.
I know it's funny, isn't it? Because you lot say plaster and we say plaster, and it's funny. I'd say no, it's strange, you know. Anyway, I could talk to you all day about different things, but I've always thought it was Charles Buchan. But maybe that was an affectation. Anyway.
Oh dear.
So moving on. I was brought up in.
Sorry, Alan. I've just spotted that John Kay wanted to say something there. We'll just unmute you, John. Yeah. No, you'll have to unmute it. That's right.
Just a quickie. Howard Moby and I played football in the Whitlock League against Brian Finney in the 70s. Football against Brian, not against Tom, unfortunately. And just for those Bolton fans, Doug Holden, of course, played for North End in the 1964 Cup final and scored North End's first goal.
Yeah.
Okay, I've made up. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that because there was an uproar. I believe Neville wanted to say something as well. Did you, Neville? You're going to have to. Can you unmute your button? The microphone, because this is the updated system that Zoom have brought in. You see, can you? You're still muted. Have you got your good lady there? Yeah. Can you? Is it? No. That's it. We just unmute when it says mute. That's it, Neville. We've got you now.
Right. I was just thinking that Charles Buchan, if I remember rightly, when I go back for a while, he played for Arsenal, didn't he?
I think he did it 1920s. I think you're going right back to between the wars.
Yeah.
With that, yeah, you're right. There's a picture of him in the front. Yeah, it looks a bit like that's him in his book. It looks a bit like Albert Steptoe, doesn't it? Just a little bit of a young Albert Steptoe. Maybe that's what his sideline was. Maybe it was a rag and bone man on the quiet. I don't know. But, anyway, so I'll try and move on. But I was brought up in Bradford. I was born and bred in Bradford. I live in Halifax now. And in them days when I was a kid, there were 2 teams in Bradford, Bradford City and Bradford Park Avenue. The older members might remember that. And you didn't choose which team you got. It was allocated to you. It was part of your family. And I remember my grandma Stockwell saying to me, "We're Bradford City." So we are. Unfortunately for me, I went down the path that the team that's still going. Although Bradford Park Avenue are still going, I think, in the Conference North. I think they reformed. Their ground was actually better than Valley Parade. Yorkshire Cricket Club played there. It was quite a nice ground. As I say, we were always Bradford City, and it was. I don't think it was rivalry, but there were no hatred in local football in them days. I remember certainly my dad's generation, and to an extent my own. It was great that we could go to watch our own team one Saturday, and then go and watch Avenue the following Saturday. And I do know that my dad and his mates definitely did that. So although they had that rivalry, they still were Bradford teams, and they could watch other footballers. I think there were a player at the end days called Len Shackleton played for the Clown Prince of Soccer, they called him. Before my time, and I'm sure it's before most people's time here, but he once wrote a book, and on it, in one chapter, he said, what the average club director knows about football. And it was a blank page. So it didn't really go down well with the establishment, didn't Len, because of things like that. He was a bit of a rebel, so I don't think he got as many England caps as he could have done. In them days, there weren't an England manager. It was a team of selectors, and I think he had to be of the right sort of credentials, maybe to get on. So, but that was Len Shackleton, and he was quite a mythical figure in Bradford back in the day. My mum and dad got married on August the 22nd, 1953, which was about 6.5 to 7 months before I was born, which means that it was a bit of a rush do. It was all right, but I ended up being the eldest of 6 boys. But unfortunately, that particular day they got married, and they had to do, was the day of the Bradford Park Avenue derby. And all my dad's mates were Avenue supporters. And his best mate in particular was a great Avenue man called Eric Gatenby, bless him. And so can you imagine they weren't very happy with my dad, put it that way, getting married on the day of the big derby, which, obviously, so he had to live, he never quite lived it down. I went to my first game at Valley Parade on April 18, 1964. This is the programme. It's actually made out of blotting, it looks like blotting paper.
Right.
And, it's versus Oxford United, and it's a team of long-forgotten footballers, apart from one. Playing number 4 that day in my first game, if you can see it there, was a chap called Atkinson.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Ron Atkinson.
He
was a journeyman footballer in the lower leagues. Oxford had only just come up from the Southern League at this point, I think. I think they replaced somebody like Gateshead or whatever. But Ron Atkinson, obviously, he went on to become manager of United, didn't he?
Yeah, yes, he did. He did.
And I saw him when he was an Oxford United player on his first back in the day, before he were famous.
And he kept telling, from the footballers I know, he kept on all the who used to play under him. He said he kept telling everybody he would play when he played at Oxford United. He was still the best player that they ever had.
Yeah, yeah.
He reminded him on a regular basis.
Yeah.
One thing, I know we're talking about this. Can I actually come to one point, Alan? And I mentioned before about the fact that you visited Chorley Football Club. When you visited Chorley Football Club, and you visited. We talk about your theatrical background, and you were very much involved in a play. Tell us something about that, because the play itself was about dementia.
Yes.
And one of the things I was going to ask you, first of all, were you wary about writing a play with somebody? How many people were in the play? Was it a two-person?
Two, and the lady that's in the play, it's about her dad.
Right. And I was going to ask you. When I read the notes as to how you felt about doing that when the audience that you were doing it for contained quite a few people, obviously, because it was their organisation, were suffering from dementia. First of all, how did you feel about doing that? And then you can tell us about the situation.
Well, it's a very good question, because normally when we've done that play, we've done it for a general audience, an audience of people who come along to watch a play. Yeah. Some of them don't even know what it's going to be about. So it's just a general audience in general theatres. We have done it in a lot of places where, like in hospitals and various local community places where people know what it's about. And there may be the odd person that's living with dementia as part of their dementia journey. But Chorley was something different because it was an actual meeting where people have got dementia. And I was a little bit, I won't say I was nervous about it, because the good thing about the play is anybody that hasn't seen it, and anybody that has, it does, and every dementia journey is different. Some people, I would imagine it's an awful thing, but our play, it really focuses on the positive about, and there's humour in it. There is laughter in it. There has to be. It's not just a tale of misery. There has to be some stories in it that are very poignant, but it's a story of laughter as well as tears, and based on very much on a true story. When we did it at Chorley, it was fine. I watched people watching it. Something I like doing anyway. I like sitting, watching people watching. Not necessarily anything that I've watched. Sometimes I'm in the cinema and I'll watch people watching somewhere. I like it. I don't know why. It's maybe I'm just a student of human nature. So I watched the audience at Chorley very, very carefully. And there was one particular chap, Keith will remember him, and David. He was an ex-goalkeeper back in the, and afterwards, after we'd had the story, what we do is we do a Q&A. We talk a little bit about the story behind the play, how it was written and who it was about. And then we invite people to talk about their experiences. And this particular gentleman, he was, right on it. And I don't know if it was Keith that mentioned it, but it came out that he played against the great Duncan Edwards. This man. Is Keith here now? Can Keith maybe
yes.
In on it a bit?
That's right.
Oh, David. Yeah, David. Yeah.
You're right, Alan. Keep going.
Yeah, I was just saying that this particular chap was there with his wife, and he'd been goalkeeper, and I think he says, I let 6 in against, he says, I got out at weight last one, didn't he? So it was...
Can you, just do it, can you, Keith, can you demute your mic?
He sent me a message earlier saying that his audio wasn't working for some reason.
Right.
Well, I'll tell anyway, but the point is, your point, that I watched that gentleman. I didn't know that he was going to speak afterwards. I didn't know he was going to be part of the Q&A. But I watched him watching a play about dementia, and he was smiling throughout. He was just happy, and he seemed to be. There's not a lot of... In actual fact, we know we've got 2 bishops here. The person that we're talking about in real life was a Methodist lay preacher. And so there is quite a spiritual element to it as well as it just happens to be that his last memory was the Grimsby Town team. But he was also, in his normal life, he was a building society manager based in Oldham, of all places. I suppose some you have to do. But a good man throughout his life, but he'd been a Methodist lay preacher. So throughout the play, there is an undercurrent of hymn tunes, just sort of, underneath some of the nice stories and that underneath. So it's quite an uplifting piece, if I say so myself. So I wouldn't feel wary about anybody with dementia. We've had 1 or 2 people who've just been newly diagnosed. We had a lady come to us in Grassington, and she came up to us after the performance and she said, I just wanted to tell you that I was diagnosed the other day, that I've got dementia, and I'd like to thank you for giving me some hope after watching the play. Well, that means more than anything. Can you imagine how Catherine, it's about Catherine's dad, who I knew, so... Yeah. And so, there is a spiritual element to it. Without forcing it down anybody's throats, he was a spiritual man. And I think there is an element of faith in there, and that things hopefully are going to, things will be as they should be. So it's all right. I'm very proud of it. We've done it for the NHS. Grimsby Town we took it actually back to Grimsby Town, and they put it on in their executive lounge for a dementia. They had a tie-up with some dementia group over there, and going back to Grimsby, as you can imagine, in for 1938, it was just great taking it back. But somebody, as a result of that, found out about it. A Grimsby Town supporter who was a chief executive of an NHS trust in Leeds called Jim Barwick. He came to watch it and was blown away by it. So he paid us out of, I don't know, whatever, not a lot, but enough, their expenses. And we did it for doctors and nurses and consultants in a hospital in Leeds, because what he was saying is he's a nurse himself. That's where he came through before he became a chief executive. Sometimes health professionals, they go into their clinical mode. But sometimes it's good to take a step back and listen to the family's stories. Even health professionals sometimes need that. And so since, as a result of that, we did it at various hospitals up and down the country. So, and we took it to Chorley.
Yeah, and I know it got. We were talking about today about it. They got great reviews, and they said it was absolutely superb. The point you make there, obviously the NHS and all the people who are working through the situation and getting all the applause which they richly deserve. Let's hope the government decide to give them some money instead of just giving them applause, seeing as they've been asking for a decent wage for yokes. But I won't get too political on that.
No, and I won't get political either. But one thing that I've found out a lot about dementia is that when you consider it, and cancer's a horrible thing, but when you look at the money that's thrown at cancer and how much money is thrown at dementia, it's just a fraction. And the effect that dementia has on society, well, as you know, I mean, we're not going to get political, but it's a heck of a subject, isn't it? And it's a subject.
It is. It's one of them. It's the old situation with any politics. You could go on about. The point I was making was the fact that they're there and being professional about it. They're seeing all this suffering, but they have to put up that shield, not the protection thing, but the shield mentally to protect them about getting involved with the patients, and that must be the most difficult. What I'd like to do, let's be a bit like, I'd like to go on to a light-hearted thing now, in the fact that I was looking at your CV, and you went through it there, the fact that you were a manager and you're a player, but you were a referee as well.
Yeah. Very much so.
I refereed in both for 10 years, so I know some of the things. But what were some of the situations you went through as a referee? Which leagues did you finally do?
Well, I started refereeing at what I thought was a very young age of 36. I thought I was not but a lad.
I finished at 32.
What I didn't realise was that in refereeing terms, I'd missed the boat. I say to young lads now, if your normal everyday footballer, local footballer, who's obviously not going to make it, if you want to go to places like Old Trafford or White Hart Lane or travel the world, start refereeing now in your late teens, early 20s, because you can. There's a pathway, and if you've got it about you, you can get through and you can go to these places, but by the time I got the bloody idea, that was already too late. So it was local football for me. I got to a sort of semi-professional level when Halifax Town got relegated out of the Football League. They came to me, because I was the president of Halifax, secretary at the time, I became the president of the Referee Society, and said, would I appoint the fourth officials for the conference game? Because they'd been getting a fourth official from the Football League, but at that time in the conference, you had to find your own fourth official. So I thought, great, that's like a nice thing for local people. You're getting at like a professional level of football. But as also another result of Halifax Town getting knocked out of the Football League, they also got kicked out of the Football League Reserve Division, which was the Pontins League at that time. I think it was, yeah. And so they had to find a league to play in of non-league reserve teams. And that league at that time happened to be the Lancashire League. And so they had teams like, I wrote them down because I went to them all to finish up.
Why are you looking? Is that in the time where the Lancashire League consisted of the Football League A teams? Because then they had the main team, they had the reserve team, and then they had the A team. I ran the line for quite a few, but besides the Football League, the top teams and the A teams, they also had the lower thing with Stockport County and Crewe Alexandra. and that kind of standard.
No, that would be around about the 80s, I think, that Norman.
Yeah.
And I remember Bradford City played in that because I remember going to watch them. When I refereed in the 90s, it were teams like Atherton, Chorley, Kendal, Southport, Morecambe, Barrow, Lancaster, Runcorn, Trafford, Urmston.
Yeah.
All they were the reserve teams of all of senior non-league teams.
Yeah.
That had been used as playing at local, refereeing at local parks level. I got to go to, and they were playing on their own, Altrincham and all that. Another one, they were playing on proper grounds, and there were a mixture sometimes of first teamers coming back. Or it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it because I had a job at the time that gave me free petrol as part of my job. I said to the secretary of I got on right well with the Lancashire League. Send me anywhere. I don't care. I'll just do it for the fee. So I ended up going to Barrow on a Friday night. I've always had a soft spot for Barrow, and I hope they come back this time because they were leading the conference, weren't they?
Well, I think that I don't know whether I've been quoted on this, but I think they've actually, because Bury sadly went out. Then Barrow have automatically gone up because they were leading the league. I think they've actually got up. They've been accepted into that position there. I might be wrong on that. And this, if anybody,
I'm hoping so, because if you look into it, when they used to have re-election to Football League back in the 70s, Barrow came only third from bottom in 1972. But the reason they were kicked out, and Workington, was because it was such a long bloody way to choose Mr.
It is a long way to travel to watch your team.
Yeah, if you come
the longest cul-de-sac in the
the longest cul-de-sac Barrow is. Yeah.
But they were really voted out unfairly. I once went to Workington to watch Bradford City on the Wallace Island coach, so it's a lot before they had motorways. It's the first time I saw the lakes actually.
Can I tell you? Well, I remember. Can I tell you one story? You probably won't know this. I used to be in a group called the Houghton Weavers, and we were doing. We did the TV, and we also did the theatres. And I remember we did the summer season for about 12 years at Southport Theatre, 1700, brand new 1700 seater theatre. And I think it was 1986. We come from West Houghton, which is near to Wigan and Bolton, and I'm on stage and I'm the front man. And I said, well, it's great to be here, and we're local. Have we got anybody in from Wigan? And there was a crowd on the right-hand side who cheered like mad. A 40-seater coach. And I said, congratulations on Wigan Athletic being elected to the Football League. It was the first time they had depended on the chairman of the clubs there to vote people in and vote people out, because they used to keep every altering battle for years to get in. Wigan Athletic got elected, and we cheered. And then Tony, our singer, leaned over to me and said, do you know which team dropped out? And I went, oh no. And it was Southport.
That was, wasn't it? Yeah.
And there was absolute silence. And I went, yeah, right.
Yeah, moving.
And I said, can I just say, I want you to realise, actually, it was Southport that was anyway. So everybody here will appreciate this. That's the first time I have ever been lost for words. And then Tony said, he nudged me and said, anyway, we'd like to do a song about this situation. We went straight into a song. And I've become great friends with the people at Southport Football Club now. A friend of mine who was the chairman there, and we did songs with him. But I shiver when I think about that. And that was all because of Wigan Athletic getting promoted. And them getting relegated. I'm going to have to cut you short, Alan, because time is... Is there anything else you want to particularly mention before we?
No.
It's been. Has anybody got any questions for Alan? Sorry, Neville. Yes, Neville.
Not a question for Alan. It was just for you, really, because you mentioned West Houghton.
Yeah.
So I thought you should be called a Cayed.
A Cayed. Yes, that's very true. Sawing the cow's head off. We've been trying to live it down for years, haven't we? One thing I was going to mention, Neville, and the people who were here last week, we were talking about that, and I found it. You actually speak Russian.
Yeah, говорили по-русски.
All right, stop showing off. I'm only pointing out the fact that you can speak Russian. Where did that come from? Where are you from originally?
I was born in Bolton.
I don't see many Russian people speaking too much Russian in Bolton. Where did you learn the Russian from?
I learned the Russian when I joined ESO.
ESO?
We had to go over to Russia when the Gorbachev was dismantling the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And building up, well, what was East Germany?
Right.
Remember East Germany?
Yeah.
You know, we had East Germany and all that sort of, all those little states around there that had been formerly. CCCR, as they call it.
So you actually learn you learned the Russian language, or is it only just little bits here and there?
Oh no! It was a bit more complicated than that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I was at Bolton School, and they said when you were doing A levels, you should have what shall we say? One day rather in a week. Yeah. When you did something other than the subjects you were doing for A level.
Right.
And there was a Russian speaker there who offered it to those who wanted to have a go at Russian. Right. Well, everybody else was a bit scared, but I was a bit challenged. And he gave me all sorts of books and things. And that came in very useful when after the, well, you remember that, won't you, the signing on?
Yeah.
Yeah, after that stage out, which I failed because I wore glasses at the time, and that was it. Really, I applied to ESO when they were short of people coming in through the what was it, the J4, was it, the people who could only speak roughly Russian.
Yeah.
Well, I'd taken it with this chap at Bolton School who was a trainee teacher, and he got us to sign to go in for an exam called the Russian Council.
Right.
There wasn't an A level then.
So have you found it's coming useful speaking Russian?
Oh yeah.
How often do you use it?
Most of the time, people do know about it, and they sometimes ring up and say, "What does this mean?" It's a bit difficult because it's a different alphabet as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, don't get into that. I have enough trouble with English. Of course, being a Lancashire lad, we talk because we don't talk, these Southerners, they don't talk proper like what we can. Accents baffle me. I mean, Birmingham baffles me. I can't understand how 3 million people can have a speech impediment. It's just they just don't talk proper, really. But anyway, so I think we're getting
Norman.
Yes.
Norman.
Yes.
Could I ask Alan, is there anywhere online where we can find anything else about his play, or is it published or anything like that?
Some of my plays are published, but this particular one I've kept back because I want to be able to do it myself or give it away or whatever. So if you're interested in reading the play, I can send you a copy of it if you're more than happy. But hopefully, whenever this coronavirus scourge finishes, we'd like to come back. I think there was talk of us coming back to Leyland at one point. We're going to in Chorley.
Right.
And we're more than happy to do it on I nearly said on a voluntary basis for Noteland, but I'm Yorkshire. And
it doesn't come easy, does it, Alan? Doesn't come easy.
I've just given myself a bit of an upset. But no, seriously, we'd like to do it. We like to spread the word. We like to... it's what we find as well is it's the Q&A afterwards that we're doing now. Yeah. Sometimes people will tell their own stories as well. It's quite a positive experience. So we're hoping, but if you personally are interested, I can send you a copy of the script. But obviously, it doesn't do full justice to a performance.
No. Well, I'll tie it with Keith and exchange details with you.
Yeah. So. Well, thank you for your interest. Thank you.
Lovely. Yeah. Passy, you wanted to say something, yes, pal?
Just following on from what Alan was talking about on the Lancashire League, I had a spell at Chorley Football Club playing in the Lancashire League, and a lot of the teams there were the reserves. So you didn't have the 7 subs like you do now. you know, so also a lot of good players were playing in the reserves. I mean, they don't even like playing in reserves nowadays, do they? But so you got playing on good pitches.
Yeah.
And you also got playing against some very talented players, which did your own ego a little bit, you know, compare yourself. So
well, in those days, Passy, you were right, because they had the first team and they had the reserve team.
Yeah.
If somebody got injured in the first team, the player who played in that position in the reserves went into the first team. These days, especially with all the Premier League, they've got a squad of 35 to 37 players, and the reserves never get a game. But the perfect example is at Chelsea, when you get all these young players that they've signed on and loaned out so nobody else can have them. But when one of the players in the first team gets injured, the young players don't get the chance. And it's only Southgate who's brought all these youngsters into the England team, you know, Hudson-Odoi and people like that who made the debut for England before they'd even played in Chelsea's first team because of the structure. Our famous day when we won the FA Cup in 1958 in the semi-final. Who did we beat in the semi-final, Janet? Can you remember? No, she's not taking me on. She's not. It was Blackburn Rovers, actually. But I keep being reminded by ex-Blackburn players when I interview them. Douglas, when he turned around, I'm saying to Dougie, and I said, you know, about what do you remember at the semi-final? And he looked at me. And what do you remember about days playing? And he said, you know, you beat us 2-1. And Alcock, our reserve centre forward, Terry Alcock, scored our 2 goals because Nat Lofthouse was injured. And then as soon as he came to the final, of course, Nat was fit and Terry Alcock never... fancy having a backup to that. It's like at Preston when you have a backup to Tom Finney. And we started this thing off with Brian Pilkington, who only got 1 England cap. And the reason being that Tom Finney was on one wing and Stanley Matthews was on another. I mean, you think, well, I'm not going to go anywhere with this, but yeah, again, Passy, you're right. And when I was in the Lancashire League on a line, you got Stockport County reserves and crew reserves. So you've got the people, as Alan said, coming down from the first team, or if they weren't fully fit, we'll play them in the reserves, get them fit, and then get them in the first team. Whereas
that's right. Look, there's always a lot of well-known players you were playing against in the reserves, and good pitcher. I played at Southport and Wigan and Tranmere and Oldham. All good places to go and play as an amateur, definitely. When he mentioned Atkinson at Oxford, I remember in about 1963, something like that. I went all the way. I've just passed my test. I went all the way to Oxford in the FA Cup to play against Blackburn Rovers. And I think Oxford were in 4th division. Atkinson was centre half, and they stuffed us.
Yeah.
And you've carried that grudge. You've carried that grudge ever since, haven't you, Pastor? I can tell by the expression of your face.
A long way back from Oxford when you've just got beat with something like Oxford.
Well, but still, that's the nature of sport, isn't it, really? My son, it's always handy having somebody in the background. When we mentioned to Stephen Maggs about the goal, he went on Google. I think it was over 70 goals for Preston and 125 goals altogether on his career. Is that right, Andrew? Something like that? Yes? Go on, Andrew.
It was Andrew Whittaker, not me.
Oh, was it Andrew Whittaker? Oh, I do apologise, Andrew. I thought it was my Andrew. I didn't think my Andrew would be that intelligent, but I knew Andrew Whittaker would be, so that's fair enough. Thank you very much for that indeed, Andrew.
You're very welcome. I was just stalking him on Wikipedia, so I added it all up. Apart from your spell at Guernsey, which it doesn't say how many games or goals that Steve scored there, all the others was on, so I just thought I'd drop it in a message for you.
So he played it. How did you manage to get that, Mags? How you managed to get him to go over to Guernsey?
Like Geisley.
Oh, Geisley, if I said Guernsey. Right, I think the signal's coming through now.
You know what? I love it when things like that happen. I write it down because it'll end up in a play, will that?
if there's royalties involved, Stockdale, you've got me address. All right.
Guernsey and Geisley, it's just such a difference. That's all, isn't it? You know.
I thought it was Mags, you know, being quite cheerful about the fact that she'd managed to get 2 seasons in a lovely place for a change, rather than Walsall.
The thing about Guiseley is it is actually not too far from here. It's in the heart of Yorkshire. So
yes, it is. It is.
It's not a bad old place to finish with.
It's all right. Yeah, it's a quite a good ground actually, because if you get fed up with, especially if it's either back end at season or front at season, if you get fed up with football, you can go through the club and watch the cricket on the other side.
Yeah, and it was.
Pies are good there as well.
Yeah, it's it. And don't forget, it was the home of the original Harry Ramsden's fish and chip shop. You know the.
The world famous fish and chip shop.
Harry Ramsden, yeah. We can't. Yeah. We're not that good at football in Yorkshire, but we're good at fish and chips.
I think Guiseley's the only time we've ever won the golden goal.
You won the golden goal, didn't you?
No, well, my son did, but it was the goal was disallowed at first as well, so it was a bit controversial. Sort of thing, but yeah, the liner had flagged it offside, and then the referee overruled him, so he sort of had to go a bit like cap in hand, like away fan going claiming the golden goal, which was controversial anyway. So.
I remember the first time, you know.
But yeah, you go. You're only little. They won't shout at you.
Yeah. Well, with your pleasant smile and demeanour, I can't imagine how they would possibly turn you down.
No. Well, I'll just tell them I'm from Yorkshire then, won't I?
Anyway, moving on. But yeah, I remember one of the first times I bought a golden goal ticket at Bolton. You know, because in case anybody doesn't know, it's the minute. It used to say 69 minutes to 79 minutes, and I opened mine and it said July.
Oh, brilliant!
Anybody else want to say something? I think if not, I would. Oh yes, yes, William. Will, yeah, that's Will. Go on, Will.
All it is, Norman, as just to Alan, when the Bradford fire disaster was on, which was tragic, and it always annoys me whenever it comes in the papers and it mentions the poor people who lost their lives and etc., which we're all sorry about. But there's a gentleman who lives in Adlington called Norman Glover, and he was the referee. And he only got that game at the last minute because the referee pulled out. And Norman never gets a mention, and he never refereed after that. And I always think it's so tragic that, and you know, he's a local lad, you know, nice guy too, you know.
Well, I've just absolutely gone goose pimply because if I'd have had an extra hour or two, I was going to talk about the Bradford City fire because that was what I was going to tell you about. I was there that day. And it was before I'd started refereeing, so I had quite a few experiences myself. At that time, I was a special constable, and I went to the game as a fan. But that night, I got a phone call from West Yorkshire Police that they wanted me to go up the following morning, 6 o'clock, to help out at the ground. So, but that's another time, another story. So, as a referee myself, I must admit, you know, I hadn't thought about who was the referee that day and the effect it must have had on him. So I've gone quite goose pimply. So as that, you know, it's a big part of my life is that story. And I was going to tell it you, but anyway, another time maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right though, Will. It was, you know, when you talk about the officials, and can you imagine it was bad enough, you know, anybody at the ground itself. With Stainsworth and Hillsborough thing, you know, you look at things like that and people go out for a day out and they go out for a great day to support the local football team, and the referee goes there because he enjoys it and it's all part of, you know, the enjoyment of the sport itself, and then you find yourself in the middle of that. That must have been so traumatic for everybody involved, including, again, he was the man in the middle. Everybody was turning around saying, what do we do? Do we come off? Do we play? Do we, you know, and you think, and then you stand there and think, wow, you know, what a terrible situation to go through. Anyway, to finish on a positive note, I'd like to say seriously, thank you very much indeed, Alan, for coming along and sharing your experience. We all appreciate it. We won't be able to hear everybody, but if we can have a round of applause for our special guest. Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you very much indeed, and make sure you pay the toll when you go over the border. All right.
I will. Yeah.
We don't want you speaking back, but still, thank you very much to David for actually introducing us to Alan and getting that link up. But it's been super as always. So I'll hand back to Mr. McIntosh. Are you there, Mr. McIntosh? Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye for now.